This is Jesse Havoc, and you're watching Beyond the Podcast. What's going on? It's the one, the only Jesse Havoc here, and welcome to the debut of this up-and-coming podcast. And we got a lot on tap today. That includes the Till Lindeman allegations, as well as the Britney Spears and Wemby controversy, my thoughts on Metallica's latest release, and my thoughts on AI songs on YouTube. All here today on the Jesse Havoc podcast, where I cover gaming, music, and professional wrestling, and sports. And speaking of professional wrestling and gaming, AEW's game Fight Forever just came out, and we will look at the ratings and reviews of it and whether or not I will pick it up. But first, let's get into the world of music. Per source of the BBC, Rammstein, German police open sex offense investigation into Till Lindeman, and he is the lead singer of Rammstein, known for the hit Du hast mich. Everybody's heard that song. German police opened an investigation into sexual assault allegations against Till Lindeman, the frontman of metal band Rammstein. A number of women have alleged they were recruited for sex at concerts. One fan, Shelby Lynn from Northern Ireland, recently told BBC she believed her drink had been spiked and she had been groomed for sex. Mr. Lindeman, 60, has denied the allegations, with his lawyer calling claims without exception untrue. In a statement, a spokeswoman for the Berlin Public Prosecuting Office said preliminary proceedings have been initiated against Till Lindeman on allegations relating to sexual offenses and distribution of narcotics. Prosecutors opened the investigation on their own initiative, as well as on the basis of several criminal complaints filed by third parties referring to the people not directly involved in the alleged incidents, according to the AFP news agency. Miss Lynn, 24, posted her account on social media last month and later told the BBC there was an organized system of funneling girls, and she was ushered into the small room at a show in Lithuania, but left when Mr. Lindeman arrived because she suspected it was a sex thing. Smart girl. Her accusations triggered a wave of other sexual misconduct allegations, some, like Miss Lynn, suspecting they were pre-selected on social media by a Russian woman believed to have been a recruiter for Mr. Lindeman, who invited them to the parties before and after the show. A spokesman for the band told BBC that it was conducting an internal investigation into the claims and interviewing staff and crew as a part of the inquiry. The German industrial metal group, formed in 1993 and known for their theatrical shows and controversial lyrics, have reached to the top 3 of the UK album charts with their last 2 albums. So basically, like Marilyn Manson, Till Lindeman is being accused of sexual offenses, and I'm just gonna sit back and let this one play out and see, and then I will give my thoughts on the outcome of it when there's more news to come out. Okay, now the Britney Spears controversy, which basically what happened was she was approaching Victor Wembanyama and the team. She went and reached out to grab Victor Wembanyama, the the security team, I guess, pushed her away, and allegedly she was slapped by said security guard. But let's take a look at this. This is from TMZ Sports. Britney Spears is still furious with Victor Wembanyama's security, calling his use of physical force in Vegas last week completely unnecessary, while demanding he issue a public apology. The toxic singer opened up about the situation Tuesday in a video posted to her Instagram after she heard a local radio host say she deserved to be hit in the face for touching Wemby. Wow, that's unbecoming of a DJ. She called out the station for the opinion, explaining all her years of touring and being in public around rowdy fans. Her security team has never taken things that far. Allegedly, I've been with the most famous people in the world in sync at one time, she said. Girls would like literally throw themselves at them on my way into the place. Actually, I was knocked down by like 3 12-year-olds trying to get my picture. My security not one time touched them or ever even came near them. Point being, she continued, I didn't appreciate the people saying that I deserved to be hit because no woman ever deserves to be hit. But the problem is, she wasn't hit. She hit herself. She literally went up to Victor Wembanyama and tried to introduce herself like, I'm Britney, bitch, and, you know, it didn't go well, and I think she's being bitter about it, but that's just me. Like I said, I think both parties were in the wrong except Victor Wembanyama, who was just minding his own business, but the security team and Britney herself. In her video, Spears recounted the July 50th scene from her perspective once again, saying she was backhanded so hard in the face she went down to the floor and needed to be picked up by her best friend. Of course, the video TMZ obtained, she never hit the ground after being struck, though the sunglasses on her face were knocked to the floor. She went on to say the San Antonio Spurs star security apologized to her at the table inside a Catch restaurant at the Aria some 30 minutes following the incident, but Wemby and the team have yet to publicly say they're sorry, something she clearly wants. It's the second time in the last week Spears has spoken up about the incident. She previously wrote a lengthy note on Instagram saying all he had wanted from Wembanyama outside the eatery was to congratulate him on his success. As reported, Las Vegas police investigated the incident but decided against filing charges. Wembanyama, meanwhile, went on to play 2 games in the NBA Summer League and was in Vegas with mixed results following the incident. He's since been shut down by the Spurs in anticipation for the upcoming season. I don't know. All I know is that was just sad, you know, for both sides. You know, Britney Spears is a well accomplished singer, and Victor Wembanyama is a rookie who my team, the San Antonio Spurs, picked up in the first round, and we're hoping he is the answer to us getting back, because we're 5-time NBA champions. 5-time, like Booker T. 5-time, sucker. So now let's take a look at the review for AEW Fight Forever. Okay, audience rating summary. There's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The audience rating gave it a 3.2 rating. Let's see, 6 out of 10. 64 Open Critic and Games Radar gave it a 3.5. Wow. Audience reviews. Pro 1, Virtual Professional Wrestling, No Mercy Nostalgia. 2, Blood Tables, Ladders, and Chairs, Tax and Fire, and Barbed Wire, intergender matches. Very fun gameplay. IGN's 1980s 16-time world champion Ric Flair popularized the expression, to be the man, you gotta beat the man, per source of IGN. In professional wrestling games, the man has been the WWE 2K franchise, existing completely unchallenged for the better part of a decade. Newcomer AEW Fight Forever's challenge does not change the balance of power, but its audacity to try by leaning into arcadey design ideas from yesteryear and embracing a pick-up and play philosophy should be praised. It's the noticeable lack of genre standard features, an underwhelming single-player campaign, and smattering mechanical bugadoos that take the legs out from under it. And yes, it is, from what I've seen, the gameplay, it is very buggy. Like, I've only seen a few bugs in the videos I've seen, but this fighter isn't ready for the main event just yet. In the same style department, Fight Forever comes out swinging with cartoony character battles and energetic animations. Most of the 52 available competitors well-rendered characters, with Kenny Omega, Jon Moxley among my favorites. Even the ones that seem off, like an air fryer shaped Chris Jericho, get the benefit of not needing to be realistic to get an appropriate vibe across. Due to the tangle web of licensing agreements, it's not possible to release a wrestling game with a roster that fully matches the television show, and many games come out featuring wrestlers who either don't look the same as now as they did when their character models were designed, or are no longer in the company. That said, there's some noticeable, almost inexcusable absences of characters and championships in the game roster that have been heavily featured in real life product for years, like Tony Storm and Daniel Garcia. When they get busy in the ring, there's an almost Def Jam Vendetta-like exaggerated explosiveness to every bump, kick, and punch that ramps up the over-the-top nature of the aerials and acrobatics of wrestling the way that comic books do for superhero violence outside the lively animations. There's a small number of occasions where some moves can actually affect the way you play in cool ways I haven't seen before in a game like this. For example, grumpy Dutch goth kickboxer Malachi Black can spray mist into opponent's eyes when he gets desperate. If you're on the receiving end, your controls will scramble for a brief few moments. See, that's what I want in the WWE game. Like, if I'm going to be a heel and I'm going to spray somebody in the eyes, I want it to affect the gameplay, and right away you pin them for an upset. That would just make, the gameplay controversial. You're on the receiving end and your controls scramble for a brief few moments. Most menus are clean, but not all interesting. The music, some of which is performed by AEW wrestlers like Swerve Strickland and Max Caster, has a lot of energy, but still is pretty forgettable. The very few voiceovers in Fight Forever are hit and miss, with the introduction of the big single-player campaign Road to the Elite being a hit and everything else being misses. Legendary wrestling announcer Jim Ross' delivery is so especially bad that if I didn't know better, you told me he was one of the most recognizable and beloved voices in wrestling history, I'd assume you'd been hit in the head with a steel chair too many times. Well, for one, Jim Ross is, I think, in his mid-60s. The man has been doing it for years, and when you get older, your voice changes. So you can't expect Jim Ross from '98 to be like, "My God, this is an amazing match," or when somebody gets thrown in the thumbtacks or thrown off a steel cage, oh my God, he killed him, stuff like that. But let's get back to the article. If you're like me and tooling around with creative tools in wrestling games, you might find the creator wrestler and arena modes to be a bit bare bones. There's a jarring lack of facial diversity, and barring some gems like a silly bear costume fans of the web show BT may recognize, very slim pickings in the cosmetics department, which feels ironic because there's plenty of assets in the creative suite, from voiced entrances calls to poses and moves from wrestlers who didn't make it in the game. But with the tools available, you'd have a very hard time making them yourself without heavy modding for those with a PC and bottomless motivation. It also lacks in many of the quality of life features, like being able to sort moves by type, which means sorting through the Fight Forever's menu of techniques to find a perfect coup de grace for your combatant can feel like a chore. Though it's very similar to current popular wrestling games, it lacks their polish and responsiveness. Whew, this is not looking good for this game. I've come to like Fight Forever's in-ring action, but it's far from my favorite wrestling game. Quick movement and smooth animations give the action a uniquely frantic energy. The nuts and bolts of combat are simple in theory and will resonate with anyone who's played a wrestling game in the past. The punch, kick, and grapple buttons will all do different moves when paired with directional tilts from the movement stick, and vary between weak and strong depending on if you tap or hold them. So there's certainly no shortage of options. Though it's very similar to current popular wrestling games, it lacks their polish and responsiveness. Sometimes a strike or grapple sequence goes off without a hitch. Occasionally, though, attacks just kind of miss inexplicably, or worse yet, will temporarily bug out to the point that I'll press buttons and nothing will happen. Running, springboarding off of the ropes, dragging opponents around the ring, or whipping them into ropes are actions I particularly felt constant disconnect with. Adding to the list of gripes is a frequently dim-witted AI, which, at least on normal difficulty, pretty regularly does baffling things like standing completely still for walking aimlessly in opponents. All of these problems are exacerbated when playing online against friends, where you can add frequent clipping and rubber banding at a rate that's frankly unacceptable. Whew. So, I'm thinking that this game is definitely, I might or might not pick up for, because I'm on last gen and I play PS4 still. I'm waiting to get a PS5 at the moment, because I'm the type that likes to continue playing a system if they're still releasing sports games for it. So I don't know if I'll pick it up. I mean, I'll probably pick it up just to try it and then maybe trade it in for something else. I'm not a really fan of AEW. I mean, I like some stuff, but I'm like a casual wrestling fan. I'm not like the hardcore wrestling fans are like, ooh, the joint manipulations. Pete Dunne does joint manipulations. It's so awesome, I'm like a casual fan. Like, I'll be one of the guys that'll pop for LA Knight. Yeah. So with that, we're going to go into music and my thoughts on Metallica's newest release, 72 Seasons, which I got at Target for $15. I've been a fan of Metallica for a long time. Around 2000 or 2001, I picked up my first Metallica album, which was the Black Album, and then along came Load Reload, and then their first four. And man, I became a fan of thrash metal. I became a fan of I was into new metal, Korn, Limp Bizkit, Slipknot, Disturbed, Mudvayne. The list goes on. I'm still a fan of music to this day. As you can see, I am weathered. You could see the grays in my beard. But that doesn't stop me from continuing to listen to the music I love. So what we're going to do, I'm going to give you my thoughts on this album, 72 Seasons. So far, the reviews for it have been good. All Music gave it 3.5 stars. The Arts Desk gave it 4 out of 5. Clash gave it 6 out of 10. Classic Rock gave it 4 stars. The Independent gave it 4 stars. Kerrang gave it 4 stars. Metal Hammer gave it 3.5 stars. NME gave it 4 stars. Pitchfork gave it 6.4 out of 10. And Rolling Stone gave it 3 stars. And I will give it 4.5 stars because, I'm a Metallica fan. And the songs are pretty good. Like 72 Seasons. Man, it was a good song. 72 Seasons. Lux Eterna. Good song. Screaming Suicide, a good song. Sleepwalk My Life Away. You Must Burn. And Crown of Barbed Wire, Chasing Light, If Darkness Had a Sun, that's a good song too. Too Far Gone, Room of Mirrors, and Inamorata. Inamorata has a good tune at the end. It's very catchy, and I enjoyed it. So if you're a Metallica fan, I would pick it up. But I'm also, later on down the line in future episodes, I will be reviewing all 4 albums: Saint Anger, Death Magnetic, Hardwired Self-Destruct, and I will give a thorough listen to 72 Seasons. So let's take a look. Let's see. Wow. Its chart performance: Australian albums number 1, Austrian albums number 2, Belgian albums number 1, Belgian albums number 1, Canadian albums number 1, Croatian albums number 1, Czech albums number 3, and these are the charts. Danish albums number 1, of course, because Lars Ulrich is Danish descent. Dutch number 1, Finnish number 1, French number 1, German number 1, Greek number 1, Hungarian number 1, Iceland. So people in Iceland love the heavy metal. Of course they do. Number 4, I mean. Number 1, Irish albums. Italian albums number 3. Japan number 4. Japanese rock albums number 3. Japanese hot albums, Billboard Japan number 4, and Lithuania number 25. New Zealand number 1. Norwegian, the Viking. Home of I love Viking metal too. Amon Amarth. Norwegian albums 2. Polish albums 1. Portuguese 1. Scottish 1. Slavic 5. Spanish 2. Swedish albums 1. Swedish hard rock albums 1. Swiss albums 1. And UK albums 1. UK rock albums 1. US Billboard 2. The US Billboard 200. But US top rock albums, Metallica charted number 1. US top hard rock albums, 72 Seasons charted at number 1. And US top album sales, Metallica has number 1. And their certifications right now is gold in Germany. And it's been released in cassette, CD, digital download, streaming, double LP from Blacken Recordings. So if I were you, so this is, if you're a Metallica fan, this is the album I would really would recommend you to get. So with that being said, let's talk about AI music. So for those of you who don't know, AI is a technology that's been able to mimic voices. And one night on YouTube, I was going through some songs, and James Hetfield had so many music, covers that you would probably never see. Like, they had him cover Nickelback's Photograph. They had him cover Under the Bridge by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. They had him sing they had him cover War Pigs and Iron Man, and then also Leonard Skinner's Freebird, which I could see him doing because he has, on the Garage Inc. album, covered Tuesday's Gone with John Popper. So yeah, but man, these songs are just so eerie because because the YouTube channel AI Playgrounds literally has his voice on point, as well as there's some of the late great Selena Quintanilla where they have her singing Adele songs, which I have shown to people in the community. And one, ZTB, even said he liked it and it was eerie. I mean, he said it was scary, and I think it's scary too, just the thought. But then again, I could see there's also one where Selena somebody had Selena sing Madonna's La Isla Bonita, which I could see her doing because Selena was a fan of Madonna, the legendary Madonna. And Madonna's known for many hits like La Isla Bonita, Bonita, Papa Don't Preach, Like a Prayer, Open Your Heart to Me. I can go on and on. So, there is other news that I can look up. Let's look at some professional wrestling news. So let's take a look at this one from WrestlingNews.co. Randy Orton. A new version of Randy Orton's WWE theme song has just been released. Ooh. This may or may not be a sign that he's about to return, but it's worth noting that on Tuesday, Ref Theory released a new version of Randy Orton's Voices theme song. Orton has been out of action for over a year due to back issues, and there have been a lot of questions about his future in pro wrestling. Bob Orton stated in an interview that he thinks the doctors would prefer if he didn't wrestle again. I mean, the doctors told Shawn Michaels the same thing, because Shawn Michaels, for all of y'all who are in the know and know wrestling, knew that Shawn Michaels wrestled in a casket match in '98 of the Royal Rumble, in which he took a back body drop and his back hit the lid, or hit a part of the casket, which herniated 2 discs and crushed one completely. He had to have his lower back put in, fused with rod and screws, and it took him 4 years to get back in the ring. So Edge was another one, had spinal stenosis and was able to come back. So if they can come back, we don't know how the severity, because WWE likes to keep their injuries quiet. So we don't know the severity of the back injury in which Randy Orton has sustained. And I'm a Randy Orton fan. I grew up in the Attitude Era and and enjoyed some of the Ruthless Aggression era. Today's wrestling, for me, I'll probably list a few of my favorites, but I'm a casual wrestling fan. I like legends like The Rock, Stone Cold, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Undertaker, Kane, Edge, Batista, and more. So let's get back to the article from Wrestling Co. He's training, so we'll see what happens, Bob Orton said about Randy Orton's WWE return. I don't know if he feels like going back, or if he feels like he's ready to go back. I think he might, Orton said. Then again, he's pretty well taken care of. I don't think he needs to. I think the doctors have told him not to. If Orton's return is imminent, there's a spot open for him alongside Drew McIntyre and Matt Riddle, who have been feuding with Imperium in recent weeks. So let's see what else is. Let's go to more WWE news. Former WWE star says he's essentially, right now, I'm done in the ring due to spinal issues. Former WCW, ECW, and WCW star Stevie Richards provided an update on his health issues while speaking with Chris Van Vliet. Richards talking about his road to recovery from a spinal infection. It's pretty scary, but it was. Looking back on it, and obviously 2020 has hindsight, and having perspective after the facts were really easy. During it, it's the hard part. Being a wrestler for so many years, any athlete will understand. Even entertainers and people in Hollywood who you talk to, when they do stunts or they get injured doing physical things, if there's a blueprint and there's obviously a predictable diagnosis right away, you broke your ankle, you broke your neck, or you tore your ACL, it's pretty easy to see within a short amount of time. The spine infection was a doormat thing that became a mystery and hit me out of nowhere. It was something that an illness like that is so unpredictable. Then you factor in my age of 51. I think wrestlers after 50 should stay retired. You factor in other things that are unpredictable when it comes to an infection, and that moves so quickly when it gets to your spine. That's what makes it more scary, the unknown of not only the diagnosis, but the unknown of can I get it treated. Then even after treatment, what percentage am I? Going back after the treatment is complete. I'm thankful to say that in a lot of ways, I feel like I'm back to 100%, but in a whole bunch of other ways, very early in the stages in my road to recovery. On the infection, when the infection started, I couldn't walk at one point. I did do a what happened video because there was kind of like these pictures I wanted to update people, and just didn't want to disappear off of social media or YouTube. Even though my ego and my pride didn't want to share myself in my low point, I'm so happy I did, because it did speak to a lot of people. I've made a lot of friends since then. But going back to the beginning, the morning, like late January on a Sunday morning, I had one of the best workouts, which must be a sign of a jinx that's coming. I had one of the best workouts I had on Sunday morning, 9 a.m., but my back was a little stiff. I thought, obviously, you've spoken to a lot of wrestlers, our backs and our necks are eventually going to hit a wall at some point. About 3 hours after my workout, I was completely stuck right in this chair that we're talking to each other in. Right now, I could not get up. My back was so completely at the time thought locked down. My wife literally had to come and peel me out of this chair and put me in bed, threw me on a heating pad, and it just progressively got worse within seconds, not minutes. Now, I mean, literally after it was over, I just accelerated whatever pain I had, and from the beginning, then I turned it into having a heating pad with assistance from her. to walking with a walker. So from 9 a.m. to about 12 p.m., my entire world, life just completely changed. That's the very beginning. And then the desperation of trying to find a doctor, trying to find a surgeon, trying to find a hospital that can correctly diagnose me. We first went to a hospital where they couldn't find a diagnosis. We ended up in the Mayo Clinic, and they saw from the week I had a CT scan in the previous hospital to that I was admitted in the Mayo Clinic. I had already even eaten like half of my. That it had eaten L4 and L5. The entire disc was gone, and it was already working into the Mayo Clinic. Was really scared at this point. Within a week, having number one, even if we didn't know what's wrong with this guy after a painful spine biopsy, we're going to start him on broad spectrum antibiotics right away because we got to stop this infection. Because if it gets to his brain, it doesn't take a super intelligent person to figure out if it gets to your brain, it's over. So it was really like we needed to hurry up. Damn, that's crazy. Steven Richards. So yes, WWE's current plans for Seth Rollins' SummerSlam opponent. Seth Rollins' opponent for the upcoming WWE SummerSlam PLE is as clear as the promotion gets closer to the show. This past week on NXT, the Judgment Day, Damian Priest and Finn Balor with Dominic Mysterio and Rhea Ripley defeated Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams. Baylor pinned Hayes in the match. While speaking on Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer noted Balor challenging Rollins for the WWE World Heavyweight title is planned for SummerSlam. Rollins just beat Balor at Money in the Bank this month. He also speculated that Balor would not be working the NXT Great American Bash main event with NXT Carmelo Hayes and Ilya Dragunov the week before SummerSlam on August because WWE is trying to build him back up. Okay. Wrestling news. Let's see what else we can do. Let's take a look at Becky Lynch and the news that she had to have a cyst removed. She spent time in the ER. Hours before Monday's episode of Raw, WWE stopped advertising Becky Lynch versus Zoe Stark on the show. As previously reported, Lynch was pulled from the bout because she wasn't medically cleared as of that afternoon, only to be later cleared and ended up having the bout where she went over while attending the 2023 ESPY Awards on Wednesday with her husband, WWE World Heavyweight Champion Seth Rollins. The former WWE Raw Women's Champion told USA Today she had a procedure done for a cyst and was waiting for clearance for Monday's match. When I landed from London, I had to go to the ER and had to get a cyst removed. Then had to get that redone Friday, but was in the ring, fine, ready to go by Monday. Rollins praised her for not letting anything keep her down. Lynch has been feuding with Trish Stratus, and I actually like that feud. Stratus on WWE television for the last few months. Most recently, met at Night of Champions where Stratus went over. When they will wrestle next to each other, who knows? And here's some Ring of Honor news because, you gotta do other news. Mark Briscoe is off the Ring of Honor Death Before Dishonor pay-per-view due to injury. Tony Khan announced on Twitter that Briscoe is not cleared to wrestle. Fightful followed up with a report that states that he has a serious knee injury and he will need to get surgery on it. That is a big blow. Khan stated that Briscoe's opponent Claudio Castagnoli is on a training sabbatical to prepare for the Blood and Guts this Wednesday on Dynamite. Khan said that he will address Castagnoli's pay-per-view title challenger after Wednesday night's broadcast. Best wishes to Mark Briscoe from the injury. Death Before Dishonor is scheduled for July 21st in Trenton, New Jersey at the Cure Insurance Arena. And here we go, some AEW news for this week. Britt Baker, quote, "I would love to have a match with Charlotte Flair," end quote. Former AEW Women's World Champion Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, appeared on Mark Andrews' My Love Letter to Wrestling podcast to talk about AEW. Baker said on being a dentist and a wrestler. That's a good person to have backstage, because if, with the way the AEW wrestlers go in that ring, getting their shit in, quote unquote, some of the stiff guys will hit you and more than likely knock your teeth out. Britt Baker is good to have in the backstage area. All right, let's take a look at it. You find a way to do it. When it's something you want to do, when it's two things you want to do, you just make it happen. Sometimes it's a little bit of sacrifice for sure. Maybe like fun, like your social life and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I love what I get to do, and I'm so thankful that I get to have two careers to plan. So I don't ever take that for granted. And I try to never catch myself complaining that I have to go to work either way, because I'm so thankful. When she found out AEW was doing a show at Wembley Stadium, to show you how naive I was, I went to Tony Khan and Orange Cassidy to Wembley to watch the Jaguars play the Broncos. I thought we were just there to have a good time. Not once did I think there was any particular reason we were taking pictures together at Wembley. And I would probably have a really good reason to post these pictures in a couple of months. I literally never didn't even think twice about it. And then as the time went on, we started hearing rumblings about it. And I think back to that trip, I was like, wait a second. On meeting Jamie Hayter on Eve wrestling show, I wrestled one other time in London, and for a promotion called Eve, I actually wrestled Jamie Hayter. That's where I met Jamie. So I had stayed in touch. Then I was signed to AEW, and she joined my team years later. So it was a cool little story, but that's the only time I wrestled in London. On wanting to wrestle Deonna Purrazzo and Charlotte Flair. Ooh, here we go. This is what I was wanting to hear. One of my best friends in the whole world is Deonna Purrazzo. Crossing a forbidden door, that is definitely someone I would kill to have a match with. Not let alone at Wembley Arena. Then let's get to the other forbidden door. The other way, I always say. I would love to have a match with Charlotte Flair. I think she's one of the best that's ever done it. And people, no matter what you say about her, she's always proving people wrong. I think she's very admirable. Her attitude, her poise, it's everything about her I looked up to. But I would like to thank y'all for joining me on this episode of the Jesse Havoc podcast. If this is something you would like to listen to, hit that like button and subscribe for more. This is Jesse Havoc, and you're watching Beyond the Podcast.